Do.
All rise, folks of the Lord.
Robert Connors.
Thank you. Please have a seat.
Good support.
Yes, sir.
This is the state of South Carolina versus Juan Lamont Gillum. He's charged with attempted murder and possession of weapons during violent crime. The warrant numbers on this is 2022 A14-101-00237 and 238. It's my opinion his bond is denied, and he is here seeking a bond. His attorney is Will Brunson.
I'm sorry. It's how many charges?
2 counts, Your Honor.
2 counts of attempted murder?
1 count of attempted murder and 1 count of possession of weapons during a violent crime.
Good morning, Your Honor. Your Honor, I stand with my client, Mr. Juan Gillum, a relatively young man. He's 22 years of age. He is a native of Clarendon County. He lives with his wife. He is in Courtroom state. And a lot of family support. Your Honor, I'd like to start by saying that my client is a little different type of client in that he does not have any prior convictions. He's accused of some very serious offenses, and it's certainly inconsistent with what he's describing to me. Your Honor, he was educated here in public school districts. He attended Scotts Branch, graduated in 2018. He went on to Morris College, where he attended as a student for a while. He didn't complete there. Your Honor, he's gainfully employed. He currently works, which is a truck stop. He's been there for approximately a year. Your Honor, he also works as a musician throughout Clarendon County. He's trained to play the keyboard and the drums. Advised that he plays at a number of different churches and for a number of different organizations. Your Honor, we understand it's a very serious charge, but I'd like to submit to the court's consideration that my client is not a flight risk. And I say that he doesn't own a passport, stable family man, just married. They just acquired a child, active in the community, has sufficient ties and implications. He has never been arrested prior to this incident, never jailed, no convictions. Your Honor, he retained counsel. I am his lawyer for the entire case. Obviously, I cannot act as a surety on his behalf, but based on my communications with him and his family, I can assure the court he will be available when needed. And to that end, he's been contacted by law enforcement at least twice prior to being arrested. He voluntarily went to the sheriff's office and met with them, I believe, on 2 different occasions. So he's certainly not trying to run from these charges. So he'll be in court when he's supposed to, and we're prepared to submit a very substantial defense to these charges. I believe that the state has been put on notice as to alibi, fairly sound, that I'm working on, my investigator. Your Honor, in regard to danger, obviously being charged with attempted murder is a serious and dangerous scenario. However, based on the fact that my client does not have anything in his history or record to indicate that he's ever been dangerous, other than being arrested, we submitted to the court's consideration that he's not. As indicated earlier, he cooperated with law enforcement, voluntarily appeared. He even gave them a rifle that he had in his home. He told them he had a rifle and he gave it to them. Your Honor, they simply got the wrong guy. In addition to the things that I just mentioned, I have a few letters that I would like to submit to the court's consideration. I've got character references. One from a Miss Ellen Carter. Would you like to see? Your Honor, Ms. Ellen Carver is the executive director of Girls on the Run. And in her letter supporting this bond, she's indicated that she's known him for an extended period of time. She indicates how hardworking he is, his family support and how family-oriented he is, and how he's known to be a hard worker in the community. I've submitted a letter in support of this bond from Ms. Bertha Carter. Ms. Carter is the pastor of the Prayer House Church here in Clarendon County. She indicates that she's known this young man since his birth. In fact, his family and he have been members or attended that church since he was born. Your Honor, I submit to your consideration that she is perfectly situated to observe this young man's character. And what she says about him is that not only is he a member, not only does he play the keyboard and the drums while he's there, she goes on to talk about how often he volunteers in the church and how he steps up to help out wherever needed. In addition to that, we have a third letter in support of the bond from a Mr. Terrence Tindall. Mr. Tindall is a bishop at the Lighthouse Fellowship Church, also here in Clarendon County. Mr. Tindall indicates that he's known this young man for 14 years and how he's in the music ministry and how his character is such that he does what he's supposed to and even goes above and beyond and volunteers there as well. And finally, and probably most importantly, we've got a letter from his employer, his current employer, Mr. Kevin Phillips. Mr. Phillips is the general manager at Love's, the truck stop where our client is employed. In his correspondence, he indicates that my client has been working there for a year, brought on as a general maintenance helper. That in the course of that year, he went from just being a maintenance guy to the lead maintenance man. He indicated that he's humble in character, he's a team player, and that he adds value to the staff. In addition to that, most importantly, he's got a job waiting for him, a job that he desperately needs to get back to as he needs to support his family. And so I say all of those things in support of the bond because we respectfully ask the court to give him one. If in fact the court has concerns about my client based on the nature of the charges, we'd ask the court to fashion a bond that would make the court comfortable, such as something that limits his movement if the court deems appropriate. However, given the circumstances that this young man doesn't have any record on, we certainly believe he's deserving of a chance to be out until this case will be called for trial. And so for those reasons, Your Honor, we respectfully ask the court to grant a bond in this case.
What is the history of the bond? Was it denied by the magistrate? Is this the first time in front of the circuit court judge? What's the history?
Yes, ma'am. So my client was arrested on June 23rd of this year. He attended the bond hearing on or about June 24th. And when he went before the magistrate denied the bond, and she cited two reasons as to that denial. In that hearing, she said the nature and circumstances of the offense, and quite frankly, she said just what's been happening in Clarendon County. She said our community is really shootings and things of that nature, and those were the reasons that she relied on. But Your Honor, we respectfully ask the court to apply what we've provided and decide as to whether or not my client is a threat or flightless.
Your Honor, I've got Investigator Randy Jones from the Sheriff's Office to briefly tell you what happened in this case, and then after he's finished with that, I will respond this morning.
Okay.
Your Honor, if it pleases the court, on June 11th at approximately 3:08 in the morning, Clarendon County deputies responded to the Highway 260 area of Clarendon County down next to the lake in regards to a victim who had been shot. That victim was on the phone with 911 and actually passed deputies as he was driving himself to the hospital. Sergeant Jackson met him at the hospital, got out with him. Of course, the car had been shot. The victim had also been shot in the head, the leg, and in the arm. Through our investigation, talking with the victim, It was discovered Mr. Gillum was the suspect in this attempted murder, and warrants were obtained for his arrest for the attempted murder and possession of a weapon during a violent crime.
So the victim was shot while he was riding down the street?
No, ma'am. What had happened was there was a meeting. So the victim had been contacted by an individual about wanting to meet up for some sexual encounters. A sexual encounter occurred in the driveway of a residence at 1133 Forest Lake Drive. We can't confirm that. After the encounter happened, the suspect got out and made a utterance, and then shots were fired where the victim was hit. The victim, through our interviews with him during this case, knew the assailant not only by the way he talked, the way he made sounds during the sexual encounter, and also his private parts during the encounter as well, while they were naked in the car. And the two had previously been in a relationship that had kind of been on and off for the past couple of years. When they first started out, the two had actually made a video together of a sexual nature.
Okay. Mr. Little?
Your Honor, I will admit that Mr. Gillum does not have a criminal record, but the nature of this case is disturbing and dangerous. We agree he's not a flight risk, but we do think he's a danger to the community. We think that it was appropriate for his bond to be denied and that it should remain so. If Your Honor is inclined to grant a bond, Your Honor, we would certainly ask that there be no contact with victims, and that a GPS provision be included in that to make sure that he's not in contact, but we do believe that his bond is appropriate.
Anything else you want to tell me, Mr. President?
Not the court, Your Honor.
I'm going to set his bond at $75,000 surety with GPS monitoring with the following conditions. Certainly no contact with the victim. And Mr. Will, did you say more than one victim? It's just one victim?
It's just the one victim, Your Honor.
No firearms in any residence where he's living. He is to be under house arrest. You can leave the house for church, medical, or legal appointments. I'm going to say that he can work, but he's got to provide his schedule in advance to the solicitor's office so they can confirm his employment and his work hours.
Yes, ma'am.
Any bondsman that agrees to go on this has got to agree to provide written monthly reports to the solicitor's office showing his whereabouts are actually being monitored. Let's talk just for a minute what I mean by no contact with the victim. So that means don't call, don't text, don't email, don't write a letter, don't contact that individual by any electronic means or social media, so Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, none of that. Don't go in person to where that person lives, works, goes to school, etc. If you've had some kind of chance encounter with the person out in the community, then you've got the obligation going out to directions. You're under an order to have no contact. It is not a defense to say, well, that person called me, and so I just called back, or, I came at the invitation. Because it's an order of the court, it's not up to the victim, it's up to me. So no contact of any sort whatsoever. You need to impress upon your friends and family as well to have no contact. If, a bunch of phone calls and contact is initiated by your friends and family, it's going to look like you put them up to it. And so that's going to reflect badly on your stones. leave this alone and let the judicial system play out. You've got a great attorney representing your interests. Any questions for me about what I'm ordering?
None, Your Honor. However, there is the second job of playing at churches and being on the bands at least 2 churches.
I'm going to allow him to go to church service. I've said already that he can do church, medical, and legal appointments. What I would say though is, if you're playing on Tuesday nights or Thursday nights, that's just something that's not going to happen while this is pending. I'll allow on Sundays, but we need to restrict your movement for a while this case is pending. You need to lay low.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything else that y'all need me to address?
Nothing further, Mayor.
And Mr. Brunson, you're going to prepare an order?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your
Thank you,
Honor.
Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.
This is Christian News TY. I'm Tony Conyers. If there are any newsworthy events in Williamsburg County, we will get them to you as soon as possible. If not, you can follow us on Christian News TY Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube, and you can follow us on our website.